Hello and welcome to today's video. I'm recording inside again today. The weather is sunny outdoors, but it's just a bit windy and I wanted the sound quality to be as good as possible. Just wanted to start off by talking about the weather again. I spoke about the weather in my video yesterday, and I talked about it in terms of the context of moving away from bad weather to good weather. So like moving from darkness to light, or moving from a situation that one isn't doing one any good to a better place. And I always talk about the dark to the light. Of course, physically moving away from bad weather to find the sun is not always possible for everyone. And just dealing with that in the context of if we're in a situation where we're not able to physically move, well, there's other ways to deal with the bad weather. I came up with a quote a long time ago in my life, and I'll just read that out to you now. The quote is, "The sun always shines, even on a cloudy day. You just need to know how to elevate yourself above the clouds to see it." Now, that is talking about elevating oneself from a dark space or experience darkness in weather terms to a light space. But it's talking about it from a holistic perspective, like raising your thoughts, raising your being above the clouds. So I think it's just another good analogy of how one can look at things from many different angles. And now it took me a long time to really continue to apply that in my life. I mean, there's certainly times where I did. These days, it's almost like an automatic response system. So if darkness comes my way, I just automatically move away, whether it be physically, mentally, my soul uplifted, combination of all things. And that's where I want to be, in the light. I talk about that just so much. I'll move on to today's topic. And today I've picked quite a big one, but I'll explain how I'm going to approach it. The topic today is people. And I'm going to talk about people in the context of people. This is in the human form that I've met in my life, and how they have influenced my journey. Just before I get into some specific examples, just saying from an overall perspective, it's only on reflection that I understand that everybody who has come into my life has actually had a positive impact on my life. At the time, there were things that were happening that I just would have thought they were just totally negative at the time. So dealing with darkness and taking a long time to work through things to get away from perhaps that person or what's influencing me. And I think that's probably pretty common in life. And of course, there were good people and positive situations that had turned up, but again, not thinking perhaps too deeply about uh, what they were adding to my life. You know, on the surface level, it was great, but what was it doing for me fundamentally? We're talking the soul, we're talking mentally, we're talking physically. How did that all add up to living a good life, and how it was going to influence me going forward? So when I wrote my story and I was coming up with examples of situations, it was very interesting because I'm writing my story in the context of where I got to in life, and I'm bringing up examples of the good and the bad, and it just at that time, it made total sense, and sort of wrote that in August, September 2025, and we're now April 2026, and it's just become very, very clear as to that element of life. I'll just get into some specific examples of some people who turned up. Now, in life, one trusts people to come into their life, or one allows people to come into their life, and it's very important, really, for me now to ensure that the people who come into my life are not going to bring such darkness that I get hung up on it, or I get involved in it, or I revert to my prior way of being. So if someone brings me some darkness, I feel that now I'm in a much better position to just deal with it and not allow it to adversely impact my journey. Generally, I'm not attracting a lot of those situations. The people who come into my life appear to be positive, but that's a whole different story in terms of the laws of attraction and magnetizing or manifesting in your life. So we get into some examples of very profound people who have come into my life. One is a lady in 2016. I talked about in prior videos about smoking methamphetamine, and it was with this lady that I did the bulk of that. And at the time, I was, I was looking for my own happiness. And on reflection, the smoking pea bit was very sort of dark. But on the flip side of that, she also brought quite a lot of light. And at the time, I recognized this light. And now, even more profoundly, in our time together, she spoke a lot about her spiritual ascension. And at that time, I had not ascended. I was a wannabe ascender. I was on the path, but I hadn't worked anything out really, comparative to where I am now. And she spoke a lot of things from the spiritual realm, and a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about now. She was able to talk about this in terms of a kind of a very automatic, flowing channeling of the information, bringing concepts together that for me, from a theoretical perspective, were very confusing, difficult to tie them all in together. But this was just flowing from her from a spiritual perspective. So getting away from the fact that she was smoking pea and was potentially addicted to it, which is darkness, or perhaps their darkness, perhaps it wasn't. We're talking about the stuff that now I'm thinking about, yeah, that's in me. And at the time, and I'm not going to describe myself as this, but at the time I described her, and I still do, as a spiritual savant, a savant who could just pull this information all together from somewhere, and it came flowing out and it was shared with me, and for that I will be forever grateful. Moving forward, I'll move forward into 2020, late 2023, early 24. I met a traveller in New Zealand, a lot younger than me, an Irish lady, and we ended up travelling overseas together, but only for a short period of time. She was a world traveller and she was a free spirit, and I knew that deep down it was never going to be a situation where that person could be with me for a long period of time, although they're definitely still with me, but I mean physically. And we were very, very close, like just an intense relationship for the period of physical relationship at the time we were together, and now, I mean, total relationship. When she turned up, I knew her. So we're talking. I'm deep into my spiritual journey when I met her. I just knew her. I knew her from somewhere the past, etc. And even before I knew her name, a name came into my head, and it was her name. So these, amazing situations that are happening in my life, which didn't prior happen, which I talk about, sort of this channeling or premonitions or clairvoyance. It's kind of not uncommon for me now, and it's not surprising for me because I've experienced it. Just a lot of examples of it. Anyway, the moving forward with this lady, and on our travels, and there came a moment where I had to let her go. And historically, I was never good at letting go of people that had become really close to me. Um, true deep love as I understood it to be at the time. And I always wanted to hold on and stay with me, or stay in. Why are you going? I knew why she was going, but at the moment we had to sort of part, I was distraught. Just all the emotion came out, and it was a terrible moment in time. So I was revisiting these moments of letting people go as I had done in the past. And when I think about that on reflection, and I do allude to this in my story, I think she was my last great lesson of being able to let go of people. So that was another example. I mean, I write extensively about her in my writings and my story. And then there's a third example of a person who came into my life in 2025, just prior to my first trip to Peru, and ties in with one of the intents that I had stated earlier in that year when I signed up to go to Peru about what I wanted to get from my experience at the spiritual retreat. And one of the things I wrote down was to do with assisting in my spiritual ascension. And it was only within a month of heading off in July that she turned up. She just turned up. And she was a traveler from Spain, again, a younger lady. And within a week, she had introduced me to a number of different meditations, which I go into detail in my story. But she'd made these suggestions, and it was within those meditations and those things that she had introduced me to that I can pinpoint that I transcended. So transcendence is literally when one goes to the higher realms. So when I talk about the higher realms, I almost pinpoint it to meeting her in that time where the things that she introduced me to, which I knew of, but I wasn't probably totally receptive to um, doing them or experiencing them. In fact, there was one I didn't know anything about. Um, was so profound in terms of my transcendence, and when I talk about the higher realms and when I talk about the light, um, it's just hard to comprehend from my prior being that these people could turn up, but they turn up all the time. So I'm not surprised any longer that they're around and they're continuing to turn up in my life. I'm very diligent now as to who I let into my life. Um, I think I really, being perfectly honest here, I just don't attract the bad people. If they turn up, I can handle it, and then let it go, and probably move away from it, or move away from the person, or I don't sort of hang around them. Um, the people who bring the immediate positiveness to my life are lovely to be around, but I don't need to hold on to them. So this is a very brief explanation of some of the people who have turned up in my life, who on reflection, very profound. And of course, the people who have brought negativity to my life or difficulty to my life, I wouldn't be where I am today without them. So everybody who's come into my life has contributed to where I am, contributed to my journey. Right, I just want to sum up in a way with regards people, and I'll probably just branch that out a little bit further into talking about the people who are around us that are not in the physical form. I spoke briefly yesterday about guides, healers, angels, and being in situations where I've experienced them, I've seen them, so I've felt them, I've seen them. And a long, long time ago, I read a book which was called The Instant Millionaire. So you'd think that's about money, which it kind of was, but it was more about all the stuff that I talk about. And we're going back 30 plus years. And in my life, I have accumulated quotes along the way and put them into what I call the little blue book, which I'll show you. So the little blue book's there. And knowing that perhaps at a future time I would reference these things, in fact, wanted to live my life utilizing them. And there's one quote I will read out to you from The Instant Millionaire, and it is as follows: "The soul is eternal, and each soul travels from one life to another, surrounded by companions. Each companion helps the other to fulfill their destiny. The encounters we have during our lifetime are never the result of chance, and it is rare to meet someone for the very first time." So now I know that everyone who's come into my life, and everyone's going to come into my life, I've met them before in whatever incarnation. And we're not necessarily talking the earth. I mean, we are talking at times physical incarnations, but I'm talking the unlimited possibilities of the universe that may be out there in the universe, maybe guides, maybe angels, maybe healers, surround us all, and they come into our lives when we need them. And the person comes into to our life when we need them. At the time, we may not know what their message is, but perhaps when we've got to a stage of our development, we may understand what it's all about. So I'll leave today's video at that. Just wanted to talk just a little bit again about the light and moving into the light. So all is light, and at those higher levels, the closer you get to the source of the light, the more illuminated things are. So in those higher realms, we have energy, we have magic, we have love. And therefore, if one can get close to the source of light and maintain their elevation somewhere near it, then they will experience very intense, well, again, it's intense feelings or intense knowledge or intense knowing of those other things, or everything else. So if all is light and I'm close to the light, that means all is magic, all is energy, all is love, and that's exactly how I feel. Well, I'll leave you now and I'll just sign off again. And perhaps just after that little discussion there, maybe the way I sign off on these videos might even make just a little bit clearer sense as to why I say them. But I'll leave you with enjoy your journey. We will meet when we should. Namaste.